And joining me now is the Reverend Al Sharpton, host of Politics Nation, founder and president of the National Action Network, and author of Righteous Troublemakers, Untold Stories of the Social Justice Movement in America. Reverend Al, thank you very much for coming back to the Sunday Show. Being in Selma today, is it a reminder of how much we gained and lost in the 58 years since Bloody Sunday? Will we ever regain what was won as a result of that day?
Well, we must be determined to regain what was won. And we must remember this is not just a commemoration. By coming with the president, it is a continuation of the struggle to maintain voting rights. Voting rights has never been under more serious assault with the gerrymandering and other games that have been played. So I think that when Congresswoman Terry Sewell asked the president to come, and she's embodied the spirit of both Amelia Boykin and John Lewis, I give her a lot of credit. I think it was the right thing and the right timing in order to do this, because you have people actively in many states, state legislatures, that are trying to undo what was done with the Voting Rights Act. We got a certain amount of damage with the Supreme Court several years ago, and now with this court, we don't know what's going to happen. So to dramatize this, to go back to this bridge and remind people that we bled and died, blacks and whites, Goodman, Cheney, and Schwerner, two Jews and a black, died to get this bill. We cannot turn around now.
So then, Rev, last question to you. What do you want President Biden to say once he gets to Selma?
I want him to say that they're not going to stop fighting. We now have voted in big numbers. We have one seat majority in the Senate. We still need to get by the filibuster. I want him to say that he will do whatever he can do and what he has been doing. He addressed it when he did National Action Network's breakfast on Martin Luther King Day. I expect him to address it fervently today. And I expect that he's going to say, because of Congresswoman Sewell, who will be with us on Politics Nation as well this evening from there, that he's going to look out for those that were affected by the tornado. I expect Joe Biden to be Joe Biden. He's been there 3 times now, and I think that he has been effective every time, but this is first time as president of the United States.
Reverend Al Sharpton coming to us from Selma, Alabama. Thank you, as always, for coming to the Sunday Show. And joining me now, someone Reverend Al just mentioned, chair of the Congressional Voting Rights Caucus for the CBC and ranking member of the House Subcommittee on Elections, Congresswoman Terry Sewell, whose Alabama district includes Birmingham, Montgomery, and Selma. Congresswoman Sewell, great to see you. Thank you for being here. I have had the honor of walking across the Edmund Pettus Bridge several times with you and the late Congressman John Lewis. It never ceased being a powerful experience. Your thoughts on this special day?
You know, Jonathan, thank you so much for highlighting not just that this is a commemoration, or as Reverend Al said, a continuation of a struggle for the equal right to vote of all Americans. But it also looms large that John is not with us. This is the second time that we will be commemorating without him, and his spirit is all around us. I know that he is smiling that we're getting into good trouble by bringing the President of the United States, who will come in and recommit himself and this nation to the struggle for voting rights for every American to be able to access the polls. You know, to me, as a native of Selma, as the representative that represents Selma, it is my honor to welcome the president and everyone every year to make sure that we never forget what happened on that bridge on Bloody Sunday. And I think it is especially poignant this year because January 12th, my hometown experienced devastating tornado, which affected over 6,000 properties, either damaged or destroyed in a small town. I mean, people know of Selma, Alabama, because of the bridge and because of the march, but it is a small town of only 17,000 people. So, you know, flowing straight from voting rights is economic rights. And so I want to thank the president for his very timely and early declaration of disaster, which brought FEMA here, but it has been an uneven recovery. I also want to thank him for giving us 100% federal assistance for reimbursement on the debris removal, all of which is really great. But, I just think that we all must remember John Lewis's famous words. The last time that he was on that bridge, frail, stricken with cancer, he said to us, never give up, never give in. Keep our eyes on the prize, keep the faith. And it's because of that I think all of us should not only be reflecting today, but we should be rededicating ourselves and having a sense of renewal that we will be more committed than ever to continue John's life's work and to strive to have this beloved community, a community in which everyone has the right to vote.
Congresswoman, as you know, President Biden is expected to talk about voting rights today, but with Republicans in control of the House, is there any hope that the John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act and the For the People Act will even get a vote?
We passed it twice in the 116th Congress, and then last Congress, the 117th Congress, we passed it from the House of Representatives. But time and time again, it stalled in the Senate because of an archaic procedural rule called the filibuster. And so you are very right. We need 60 votes in the Senate just to bring up a bill and pass it by 51 votes. And so it's hard to explain that to your constituents, especially when they see that state after state has been taking advantage of the gutting of the Voting Rights Act that occurred 10 years ago in the Shelby versus Holder decision, in which the federal oversight was gutted. So my bill, the bill that's named after John Lewis, the John Robert Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act, would fully restore federal oversight and pre-clearance back into the Voting Rights Act. And also, we have another case from Alabama that's before the Supreme Court now. It is the Milligan case, a redistricting case that is this conservative court. We're mighty afraid that come June, we'll find out that we also need to revive the Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act as well. All said, this is really about making sure that the bedrock of this nation, our democracy, hangs on the right to vote. As John Lewis said, there's no more powerful tool in our democracy than the right to vote. It all stems from the right to vote. And coming to Selma today to reenact, to commemorate, and to continue this struggle, this fight for the right to vote is paramount. And I am just thrilled that the president is coming today. For me, it's twofold: an opportunity for him to continue the struggle and the fight for voting rights, and to reiterate that he is committed and doubling down on that commitment, and also to visit my hometown and its people after the storm and the devastation that ravaged the town. So it's really twofold for me, Jonathan.
Right.
Today is a solemn day because we're not with John. This is the second time we're commemorating without him, but we know that his spirit looms large.
Well, speaking of the late Congressman Lewis, there's a petition to rename the bridge currently named after a U.S. Senator and KKK Grand Dragon for the late Congressman John Lewis. Do you know where things stand with that petition?
Listen, I think that the problem is that it's a state bridge. So while so many of us have joined that petition to rename the bridge, the reality is that it's up to the state of Alabama to get that name changed. For me, I think it's bittersweet. It's an irony that this bridge that was named after a United States senator who was a KK Klansman as well, the fact that what happened on Bloody Sunday, that ordinary Americans, John Lewis was 26 years old. He was, a young man, and that they all that the struggle for voting rights came from young people who were brazen. As John said, they shed a little blood on the bridge in Selma for the right to vote. The courage that he must have had, the courage they all must have had to stand up and make this nation live up to its ideals, its best ideals of equality and justice for all. that is what Selma symbolizes. And I hope also that we remember when we are crossing that bridge that we also must be bridge builders. And we must build bridges to close the political divide. It used to be that voting rights was not a partisan issue. It was very much a nonpartisan issue.
Right.
And time and time again, 5 times, it was reauthorized by both Republican and Democratic presidents, most recently by George W. Bush,
Right.
who came to that bridge with President Obama on the 50th anniversary.
Right. And Congressman Sewell, if memory serves, President George W. Bush had a ceremony on the South Lawn of the White House with a bipartisan crowd, including one Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell was there. Congresswoman Terry Sewell, thank you very much, as always, for coming to the Sunday Show.